Welcome to Deloitte's On Cloud podcast, the show that cuts through the noise to bring you practical insights on cloud, AI, software engineering, and more. Tune in for real-world tech strategies to lead in the age of disruption. Now here's your host, Gary Arora.
Hey, welcome back to On Cloud. I am Gary Arora, your host, Chief Architect for Cloud and AI Solutions at Deloitte. And we are coming to you from our pop-up studio at Google Next Conference in Las Vegas. Now, if you've been following the keynote, Google has dropped a lot of announcements on AI, data, and so many other things. To figure out what that means for you and your business, I am joined by two incredible guests, Bill Briggs, the Chief Technology Officer at Deloitte, and Mamoun Hirzalla, the Chief Technology Officer for Google at Deloitte. So this is the war of CTOs.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for joining.
For the beginning, Mamoun is the man, but it's always good to see you. What an awesome week. Ton to dig into, right?
Exactly. And let's get started. So what's jumped to you from all the announcements that happened yesterday? Bill, let's start with you.
Yeah. So I think back a year ago, an agent was a whisper, all the action, all the emphasis on model and kind of potential, and how many tokens do we have and how much. And we really shifted from, of course, the tech is front and center. We'll dig into it, but so many more real client use cases of the technology being applied for business problems across industries, across the globe. I think that's what we need to see more of, because ultimately the ingredients don't matter, it's the recipes. And we see some awesome ones.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, last year it was all about Gen AI, right? Last year, if you look at it, not much about Google Cloud. Yes, there were some announcements, but everything was Gen AI. This year, post the next from last year, we've been seeing all the things that are coming, and we knew that it's going to be agentic. And they did not disappoint. Lots of announcements about agentic and what clients can do as part of that. And most importantly, over the last 6 to 9 months, we've had a ton of conversations with our clients to ask, what does agentic mean for my business? How does that impact my business model? What are these new processes or things that can benefit from that? And we'll talk about that shortly here. But it's really about all being agentic and what agentic can do for the business. That's really the exciting part about it.
Exactly right. And what excites me the most is that the kind of problems that we can now solve, and they have plagued these organizations for decades in terms of data silos and disjointed workflows and unlabeled, unstructured data. Now you have new tools and new processes to actually tackle those issues. Can you share some client examples, client stories where we are actually doing this?
Sure. We have multiple clients. I'll share maybe 2, 3 of them. A large healthcare company right now, we're talking very seriously to them about looking at an existing process that has a lot of pain points related to looking at claims data and figuring out what is the right adjudication of that particular claim, how to sift through a ton of information, structured and unstructured, and then that amount of time it takes the current process to figure out what is the right thing to do. And then now suddenly looking at it and say, multiple disparate data sources, can I go and link them, look across all these data sources without costing me an arm and a leg, and then figuring out the relationships between these tidbits of information across multiple data repositories, and then coming back with a decision. And once you make that decision, have the status update into the backend integrated system through an API interface and all of that, all being wrapped up within the auspices of an agent that's basically doing that. So this is very powerful type of use case that clients are looking into.
I've been doing this for a long time.
Right.
So, claims adjudication in healthcare and insurance has been one of those things we've seen investment over. And automation, how do we get advanced analytics? How do we get advanced data? Like that's been a journey we've been on for a long time. But it always still came down to a whole lot of human reasoning and workflow. And that's the point now where we see agency go into complex tasks, and every claim and every case is different. So having to go through and come back with grounded, reasoned conclusions, right? Which that's the piece that it would always fall down before.
Yeah.
We're seeing a different kind of return, which is amazing.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that, because many of our clients come to us with, okay, what I mentioned here, by the way, something we used to do, right? So what's different? What's agentic about it?
Yeah.
So the difference is the LLM. And it's not just the generic LLM that Google releases. We look at the data. We look at the patterns of the data. We fine tune the LLM to say, for these type of scenarios, you annotate it, you train it and say, when you encounter this, This is what it means. So that's the beauty of it. That part wasn't there a year ago or 2 years ago. It was just a pure, simple API integration. The integration is still there, but the reasoning that happens before all of that to reach a very nice conclusion, yes or no, it doesn't matter. But at the end, you're saving a human agent from going through that process and giving them a ton of knowledge based on the training that we've done to come back with a conclusion. And that's extremely powerful.
Exactly. And you mentioned the example of claim adjudication system. That's the heart of business for any healthcare organization. And for decades, these processes have lived in mainframe.
Right.
And while mainframe is a workhorse, there is a bit of inflexibility that kind of comes with it, right? What can you do with this data? What can you do with these processes?
And I think something to like this really well. We try to look at it. Of course, we're deeply curious about the advances in the headlines, and we're helping shape a lot of the technology. We've been working closely with it for a long time.
Yeah.
It's great to see it coming out party and some of the things we've been working on for a while. But we also say, here's what else has to be true, including in the legacy application stack. Like, how does that have to be ready to participate in an agentic future? How do we think about infrastructure, hardware, data, security, the things that CIOs, CTOs that have been around the block, they'll see the headlines and roll their eyes and be skeptical.
Another hype cycle.
Totally. We've seen this before. And if you only focus on the shiny object of the new, how to make it real, what has to, the rest of the investments. And the thing we help is to tell that story to CEOs, to CFOs and boards.
Exactly.
That it's not, you have to eat your vegetables before you can have your dessert. We're not trying, it's that there's real advances happening, there's real investment needed, which, by the way, is what's dominating most of our clients' technologies.
Yeah, I'm going to age myself now a little bit. I remember the old days when Java came up, right? Then enterprise Java beans came up, and then web services.
Yeah.
Everybody who had a code in Java became an AGB unnecessarily because they were trigger happy on AGBs. Then the same thing became web services, microservices, and now the same thing, we're seeing the pattern. Agents. Everybody who has a microservice out there saying, oh, this can be an agent. But is that the right way to think about it? No. But look, this hype worked out in the past. You go through this process of about a year, you sort out what works, what doesn't, and then it settles on what is the right balance. And that's where this will kick off. So next year, it's going to be a blockbuster year because this is hype will settle down in about, I would say, 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And then the true things will emerge as part of it.
Okay. If anyone had on their bingo card, EGAB is going to come out. Oh yeah. I'm going to double down now because a huge theme of next this year is on interoperability.
Right.
So as a guy that helped build and lead our integration practice for a while, if we come the core, but we're going to throw a couple of gems out there for the Let's do it. The bingo. But now we have A2A MCP.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the idea that the promise of our AI future requires not just agents to talk to themselves, but to be able to deeply integrate it in the business process and applications. And so that was a missing link for a long time. I think that might be one of the things we look back on and say, what's different now? And we were here for
it. Right? Excellent point. And that's exactly the discussion I had with a large European bank yesterday.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about, it's great, everybody's doing agents. Now, I am doing this process in anti-money laundering. 20 other banks are doing the same thing. It doesn't make sense to do it. Why can't somebody like Deloitte or others who have the industry knowledge partner with banks, make this and make it available? Great. That's the same question came up when Corba came up, when web services came up, and we said BPMN will save the day with the agent, with the processes and composable business services. Never took anywhere. Now, what's different this time is that required a ton of understanding, required a ton of collaboration around the protocols. That did not happen. Everybody wanted to do their thing. The LLM is the biggest differentiator now. The agent-to-agent announcement that was happening or happened with Google Cloud, which we were part of the initial discussions as part of the consortium with additional 60 plus companies that Google announced, is going to be a significant game changer because nobody will trust one company to come and say, I'm going to own the brain trust on agent-to-agent. Everybody knows this is the next big thing. It has to be a consortium led, which is happening. And then the third part is how to make the data available to the models. The traditional way is connectors, and we help Google build a lot of connectors for their agent space as part of the software engineering effort. But then MCP, what Bill mentioned earlier, is a big differentiator because it standardizes how you make the data available, the context available to that model, so that as a company, I can subscribe or participate or whatever it is to make that data available. So I'm not going to say think of it as a clean room for models to share, but it's getting close to that one.
I like
right?
that. Yeah.
You know, and I want to double click on that because I am excited about that update with agents. I think AI agents are having their microservice moment.
Yeah.
Where when microservices came out and just scaled up, this is the first time the service is now exposed for another entity to consume. Right. And AI agents are doing the same thing, except now with intelligence on it.
Correct.
But we also have that notion of everything can be an agent. And you may have too many agents. And then how do they communicate?
And think about what we learned in the API gateway movement before. Suddenly it was discoverability. How do we understand the context and the expected outcome in ways to find protocols?
Right.
But then how do we route? How do we put thresholds to manage performance potentially? Because we're coding it in ways that we can't anticipate how it will be used and how it's going to evolve.
True.
Which is exciting, but it could be runaway, let's be honest, it could be runaway costs. It could be runaway complexity. It could be runaway business process operations that we don't understand and can't explain, which is
traceability, maintenance.
So I think that hard work that we lived and learned through the integration world will come in handy in this requires the investments in the scaffolding around it. Or it could be addition by subtraction.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And the pace of innovation in this AI agent space has been so staggering that I feel one of the things that was missing in this space was a set of standards, frameworks, how the interoperability kind of notion. Do you think the dust is finally settling on some of those aspects with agent-to-agent protocol?
We say settling, not subtle. Yeah. But I think Mamoun's point about the consortium, and if you think about 10 years ago, if you went to a conference like Google Cloud X, you would not see all the partners. And I like Google's, like they basically said, we're going to continue to invest up and down the stack in tools and capabilities because we can at our scale, because we know you have to allow multiple participants because there's been so much innovation. So we're seeing more and more deals with the multi-parties. And I think we have to have some opinions of what are the right combinations for a given market industry solution, which is how Deloitte's investing in our own assets and platforms. Like you see our announcement with Google Cloud and ServiceNow around we create to bring to market. Part of Deloitte's evolution from just a services firm, how do we codify our knowledge of industry function into outcome-based software agents and platforms and the like. So
agree. And I think, what you touched on is one of the lessons learned from the past, right? People realize that you cannot do it alone. And what they used to do is they used to kind of, in the past, they used to go and try to make these standards, bake them off until they're in a nice state, then release them and start looking for consortiums. What's happening now is the complete opposite. What basically they're saying, I have an idea. I have 4 or 5 pages about it. Let's build the consortium about it, build the excitement, and let everybody influence that direction. So therefore, everybody feels that I have a stake in the game. I'm not just following a direction from a big CSP to be part of that. No, I have a stake and I can influence it. And therefore, it's to my benefit to be part of that consortium and going forward. So that's a smart move from Google's side to be on that front. And I think a lot of people trust that consortium of 65 plus companies to be the brain trust for it. Google is embracing MCP as part of the process, and they're coming with this one. And I hope that in the coming few days, we will hear announcements from other CSPs joining the same effort going into it.
So coming together of these different entities, stakeholders to define what those common standards should be, that's the most exciting part, because I feel nowhere in history we have had a new technology evolution and setting of standards happen so closely together.
Correct. Yeah. I'm even rolling my eyes on to say this, but I was here in Vegas a couple months ago. I made the point at the time, we had so many billboards and booths prominently displaying AI as a feature that was the standout. And my feedback in the moment was, listen, there's no booth talking about now with electrons, now with electricity. Like we need to stop focusing on the artificial AI headline, what it's doing in the page set. But with electricity, we don't question how we're getting 110 volts in 20 amps coming out of the circuit. We plug it in.
Exactly.
It happens. It could be from nuclear, it could be from turbines, it could be from gas. Like that's the piece that we need to get to, where it doesn't mean that hard work doesn't exist, but it's below the line of what most business enterprises think about.
Yeah.
So then what do we do with And we're close to, but it's not past tense so but steps in the right direction. Sure.
Agree 100%. And then the other point, you touched briefly on it, with the proliferation of agents, you mentioned that too.
Yeah.
How do you govern all of that? Where is the body that's going to regulate what's a good agent, what's a bad agent? There are going to be a lot of marketplaces for agents. Google is certainly coming up with one when their announcement, and I'm sure others have similar ones and they will announce more. So who's going to come and say an agent that checks out these following traits and functions, and then somebody needs to rate these agents, and how can you be objective? And how you take all of that to the market. And now, how do you discover these agents so that you can build these composable things out of them and trust that this is going to be the key? That area is still very active right now. And it's going to be a lot of interesting things coming.
So every entrepreneur out there, management agents and middle management agents and regulatory agents and executive agents. Is right. He just turtles all the way down. No, I said it. No, I'm not trying to be flippant. You're exactly right. And that is the piece to unfold that we're Deloitte's going to lead in.
Right. Absolutely.
No, we don't want to replicate that bureaucracy in the agents.
No.
But Bill, I liked your analogy of electricity. And I feel what these interoperability adapters are doing is what really your electric adapters are doing.
Right.
You take your MacBook to any other country and they may have a different voltage.
Right.
You put your adapter in and it does the translation for you.
Right.
You don't have to figure out how this is going to work. Is it going to blow up your laptop or not? Right. I think that's the moment that we are looking at right now.
Totally.
One of the tech trends that I've noticed this year is that hardware is eating the world.
Yeah.
And this is so different because it's mainly been about software.
Totally.
So what is this trend?
Infrastructure and hardware
exactly,
a commodity that someone's going to figure it out.
So hardware is having its moment. Tell us what's important about this and how have you seen this unfold with the clients?
Yeah, well, and even this week with Google's announcements, so the reason we wanted to highlight it is the flurry of investment in AI chipsets, server side, and the suite of announcements from a lot of the end use here, laptops and mobile phones, of saying we have AI chipsets optimized for the edge, and then specialized hardware that's actually on the edge inside a factory floor or on a hospital floor, in a semi that's pretty autonomous. So the idea that the hardware is actually opening up new capabilities for the first time. And you have to make some decisions. Are we going to rent or buy? Cloud delivery, is that the right way to go? Quantum's continuing to advance. We've been investing in quantum joy for 6+ years. Should we buy a quantum computer? Should we think of that as a cloud service? So the idea of it is becoming not just a more strategic concern, but it's something more and more CEOs and CFOs thinking actively about. Like where to go along, how do we partner, in what ways? We need to build data centers ourselves. So we need to partner with organizations that can provide the capacity. So that thread has been really important. And you look at what Google announced with their 7th gen TPU, and Thunderbolt. They have announced to other hardware players. So they're saying we're going to continue to provide options for performance, options for power consumption and costs, and be open to allow you to deploy our technology and others on whatever is the right mix for you. And our CEO was talking about 42.5 exaflops, which is the maximum configuration of all which I never thought that we'd hear that. So we have this moment in time that we have to understand what it means. Like anything, you have to lead with need and why would we use it before we drive any kind of costly hardware refresh or buyout. But it's absolutely a piece of the conversation. And you get back to the CIOs and CTOs being skeptical of the really shallow, empty-calorie headlines and announcements. When you start saying what would have to be true and investments have to be in place, that's what makes it real.
Agree, 100%. Yeah.
And for the kind of problems we want to solve, for the kind of innovation we want to drive, it can't just be software alone that is getting optimized. It has to be the hardware itself, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad that this is all coming together at such an unprecedented rate. Let me ask you this. We are in the 4th month of this year.
By the way, I think I'm influenced by the new Marvel movie that's coming out. That's my phone buzz. If I said Thunderbuzz, Ironwood. It's always listening. The new Marvel movie. Ironwood is the new Google.
TPU.
Yeah.
See, your phone's always listening, Bill.
You can tell. It's a real-time nudge on, but the way the sentiment is true.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So we are in 4th month of this year. So much has happened already in terms of the updates and the innovation we have seen. We started the year with single agents. Now
Yeah.
we're talking about multi-agents
Right.
that autonomously talk to each other. We started with LLMs, and now we have deep research LLMs
Right.
that can get you PhD level
Right.
insights.
Yeah.
So let's assume we are now sitting in Q4. This is December, right? We are getting ready for the holidays, and we do a look back.
Yeah.
What do you think some of the things that happened this year that you're most excited about in terms of the capabilities it unlocks? Let's start with you.
So the most exciting thing to me is the release of the agent development kit from Google. Because if you look at the offerings from Google today, if you want to build an agent, you can build an agent few clicks with Agent Space that allows you to go across multiple repositories, and in 5 minutes, you're there. You can go also take actions. These actions can be calendar actions or mail actions or ServiceNow actions. And you can do that. Extremely powerful in very short order of time. If you want to be more sophisticated, you can go and build agent using Agent Builder, where you can specify a goal and you specify instructions and you add the tools to it, whether it's an API tool or a calendar tool or integration tool or a data store tool. And you can do that also in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. To get more sophisticated, to get to the level of where true agentic capabilities need to be there, that agent development toolkit is required because it will allow you to be interoperable across different multiple kind of agent work frameworks. And then the agent to agent framework or the protocol, as that gets mature, I should be able to discover, I should be able to interoperate. And the interoperation here is not just the integration. It's truly about what is the handshake verb? What do you discover? How do you advertise? How do you do all of these things? And then you may want to negotiate as part of that. These were all the promises that we talked about when Corba and web services came along, never materialized. I think there's a great opportunity right now to go and say, this potentially could materialize because there's an LLM behind all of this. And these things do really well when it comes to the interaction and the changes. So December timeframe, to put the answer quickly, these tools are available now. They will mature very quickly. And I think the right use cases coming out of this will go beyond the hype, the chatbot, one data source or multiple data sources. You're going to see true agentic use cases that people will be very proud of, and the marketplace will allow you to go advertise. And I hope that we will be able to go and say, can I discover, can I use without a lot of complexity or sophistication? And that would be probably something that we can get to in December timeframe.
Very well said. Bill, bring us home.
Yeah. The announcement we made with Google and ServiceNow on the agents that we brought to market today, I hope that we see 100x number of agents that are available with Google and ServiceNow. And right. And also, we have partnerships with other tech providers in similar ways. And I think the power of the continued investment with interoperability would mean for hard of this issues for clients who are showing up with outcome-based solutions to help them realize it. They're probably going to stitch together a coalition of many different players. Of course, Google is an important piece of that puzzle, but all of our clients are having deep relationships with multiple tech providers, and so do we. How do we read that tapestry, all of them working together for better outcome? And for Deloitte, we continue to have amazing people doing great work in professional services, but also more and more investment in our core engineering and platform, outcome-based assets. I think agents are going to be at the heart of that. So
Yeah.
you see that evolution.
Agree. And since you mentioned ServiceNow, that's close and dear to my heart as part of the partnership. So I'll give you some of the glimpse and the differentiation that could come out of that. Today, when you look at Kubernetes and container workloads and all of these things running Google Cloud, that's one part. ServiceNow has the view of potentially containers along with legacy systems that may not be under the auspices of cloud monitoring as part of Google Cloud. Now, suddenly an issue happens in a container or things build up to potential issue. An agent is looking, listening, and monitoring, saying, potential issue, alert. If that happens, created a ticket automatically says, I got the issue. We have trained that on a pattern or set of patterns from log data, says, here's what the issue is, here's the potential solution, create, alert, assign, and here show the solution to it. So when you fix it, that could take minutes rather than days. The next stage of evolution will be, what is the level of trust to see that this level of
Stop feeling
exactly the autonomic type of stuff. So you can fix it. And I need your permission to say, can I go and put it into that branch? Go ahead and do it. So that's the vision. And some of the action is happening right now to see this is a big differentiator. This is not just your ordinary way to debug and do these things. This is a huge differentiator, all agentic, building on the strengths of Google Cloud, security operations, the cloud operations, along with ServiceNow to make that vision a reality.
Wow. All right, so now we have you both on record predicting the future. So let's meet in December and see where we land. Really an exciting time to be in technology and witness all this technology evolution. That's it for our episode. Thank you so much, Bill and Mamoun. You can find us all on LinkedIn and continue the conversation. If you like this episode, be sure to like and leave us a review so we can continue to bring these deep insights from the ground. That's it for now. I'm Gary Arora. I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Deloitte's On Cloud podcast. Share this episode, subscribe, and join the conversation. And tune in next time for more real-world tech insights and strategies. Until then, keep innovating, keep leading.
This podcast is produced by Deloitte. The views and opinions expressed by podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Deloitte. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice or services of any kind. For additional information about Deloitte, go to deloitte.com/about.